It's time for another chapter. We're up to chapter 4, October Blizzard. Laura woke up suddenly. She heard singing and a queer slapping sound. Oh, I am as happy as a big sunflower slap slap. That nods and bleeds in the breeze. Oh, slap slap. And my heart slap is as light slap as the wind that blows slap slap. The leaves from off the trees, oh slap slap. Pa was singing his trouble song, the slapping his arms on his chest. Laura's nose was cold. Only her nose was outside the quilts that she had huddled under. She put out her whole head, and then she knew why Pa was slapping himself. He was trying to warm his hands. He had kindled the fire. It was roaring in the stove, but the air was freezing cold. Ice crackled on the quilt where the leaking rain had fallen. Winds howled around the shanty, and from the winds howled around the shanty, and from the roof and all of the walls came a sound of scouring. Carrie sleepily asked, "What is it?" "It's a blizzard," Laura told her. "You and Mary stay under the covers." Careful not to let the cold get under the quilts, she crawled out from the warm bed. Her teeth chattered while she pulled on her clothes. Ma was dressing too beyond the curtain, but they were both too cold to say anything. They met at the stove where the fire was blazing furiously without warming the air at all. The window was a white blur of madly swirling snow. Snow had blown under the door and across the floor, and every nail in the wall was white with frost. Pa had gone to the stable. Laura was glad that they had so many haystacks in a row between the stable and the shanty. Going from haystack to haystack, Pa would not get lost. "A blizzard," Ma chattered, "in October? I've never heard of." She put more wood on the stove and broke the ice in the water pail to fill the tea kettle. The water pail was less than half full. They must be sparing of water, for nobody could get to the well in this storm, but the snow on the floor was clean. Laura scooped it up into the wash basin and set it on the stove to melt for washing in. The air by the stove was not so cold now, so she rolled Grace into quilts and brought her to the stove to dress. Mary and Carrie, shivering, dressed themselves close to the open oven. They all put on their stockings and shoes. Breakfast was waiting when Pa came back. He blew in with a howl of the wind and swirling snow. "Well, those muskrats must have knew what was coming, didn't they, Laura?" he said as soon as he was warm enough to speak. "And the geese, too." "No wonder they wouldn't stop at the lake," said Ma. "The lake's frozen by now," Pa said. "Temperatures down near zero and going lower." He glanced at the wood box as he spoke. Laura had filled it last night, but already the wood was low. So as soon as he had eaten, Pa wrapped himself well and brought in big armfuls from the wood pile. The shanty was growing colder. The stove could not warm the air inside the thin walls. There was nothing to do but sit huddled in coats and shawls close to the stove. "I'm glad I put the beans to soak last night," said Ma. She lifted the lid of the bubbling kettle and quickly poured a scoopful of soda. The beans boiled, roared, foaming up, but did not quite run over. "There was a little bit of salt pork to put in them too," Ma said. Now and then she spooned up a few beans and blew on them. When their skin split and curled, she drained the soda water from the kettle and filled it again with hot water. She put it in with a bit of fat pork. "There's nothing like good hot bean soup on a cold day," said Pa. He looked down at Grace, pulling at his hand. "Well, Blue Eyes, what do you want?" A story, Grace said. Tell us the one about Grandpa and the pig on the sled, Carrie begged. So, taking Grace and Carrie on his knees, Pa began again the stories that he used to tell Mary and Laura in the big woods when they were little girls. Ma and Mary knitted busily in quilt-covered rockers drawn close to the oven, and Laura stood wrapped in her shawl between the stove and the wall. The cold crept in from the corners of the shanty, closer and closer to the stove. Icy cold breezes sucked and fluttered the curtains around the beds. The little shanty quivered in the storm, but the steamy smell of the boiling beans was good, and it seemed to make the air warmer. At noon, Ma sliced bread and filled bowls with hot bean broth, and they all ate to where they were, close to the stove. They all drank cups of strong hot tea. Ma even gave Grace a cup of cambric tea. Cambric tea was hot water and milk, with only a taste of tea in it, but little girls felt grown up when their mothers let them drink it. The hot soup and hot tea warmed them all. They ate the broth from the beans. Then Ma emptied the beans into the milk pan, set a bit of fat pork in the middle, and laced the top with drippings of molasses. She set the pan in the oven and shut the door. They would have baked beans for supper. Then Pa had to bring in more wood. They were thankful the wood pile was close to the back door. Pa staggered in breathlessly with the first armload. When he could speak, he said, "This wind takes your breath away. If I thought of such a storm as this, I'd have filled the shanty with wood yesterday. Now I'm bringing in as much snow as wood." That was almost true. Every time Laura opened the door for him, snow swirled in. Snow fell off him, and the wood was covered with snow. It was snow as hard as ice and as fine as sand. And the opening of the door made the shanty so cold that the snow did not melt. "That's enough for now," Pa said. If he let any more cold in, the wood that he brought in would not make it the heat to drive out the cold. "When you get the snow swept up, Laura, bring me the fiddle. Soon as I can, and my fingers thaw out, we'll have a tune to drown the yowl of the wind." In a little while he was able to tune the strings and rosin the bow. Then he sat the fiddle on his shoulder and sang with it. "Oh, if I were young again, I'd lead a different life. Lay down some money and buy some land and take a Danish wife." "For pity's sakes," Ma broke in, "I'd as soon listen to the wind." She was trying to keep Grace warm, and Grace was struggling and whimpering. Ma sat her down. "There, run if you're bound to. You'll be glad enough to come back to the stove." "I'll tell you what," Pa exclaimed. "Laura and Carrie, you get out there with Grace, and we'll see a quick step. It'll warm up your blood." It was hard to leave the shelter of their huddled shawls, but they did as Pa said. Then his strong voice rang out, and the singing fiddle, "March, march." Around and around they marched, Laura and Carrie, Grace singing with all their might, thumping loud, thumping their shoes on the floor. They felt the banners as they were blowing above them in a victory march. March, march. They did not even hear the storm. They were warm to the tips of their toes. Then the music ended, and Pa laid the fiddle down in its box. "Well, girls, it's up to me to march out again in this storm and make the stock comfortable for the night. Blamed if the old tune don't give me a spunk to like fightin' even with a blizzard." Ma warmed his coat and muffler in the oven while he put away his fiddle box. They all heard the wind howling furiously. "We'll have hot beans and hot tea waiting when you get back, Charles," Ma promised, "and then we'll all go to bed and keep warm, and likely the storm will be over in the morning." But in the morning, Pa sang again his sunflower song. The window was the same white blur, and the wind still drove the scouring snow against the shivering little shanty. The blizzard lasted 2 more days and 2 more nights.